Okay, so I thought this is the third, well, actually the fourth time, because the first one was just an introduction, and then we've had 3 actual sessions where we've gone through so far what's traditionally called, in the Buddhist psychology, called shamatha meditation, which is what we translate here into mindfulness meditation. So just cultivating these basic attentional skills, focus, having a clear, stable focus, but with a mind that is not tense and with a body that's not tense. So cultivating this ability of really having an attention that wherever we place it, it stays there. So it's not distracting, going all over the place, and also not demanding a lot of effort from us to keep present with what's going on. And so the question is, why would you want that? Like, what's that good for? And I suppose, hopefully by now you have a pretty good idea of some things. But actually, I would say that regardless of whatever we're doing in life, this skill is really priceless, really a precious thing to have. So just imagine, well, basically any kind of activity. It doesn't matter if, say, we're doing sports. I don't know, does any of you, are you engaged in sports or did any sports when you were younger, or what was your...
I was running and skiing.
Running and skiing, okay. So if you were performing really well, I would guess that you weren't tensing up in your activity. You're using the correct muscles, and the rest was relaxed, and so you don't have tension, because that's not going to help you. And also, when you performed really well, I would expect or suppose that you were also very focused on the task. You were not thinking about yesterday's exercise or tomorrow's or what's wrong in the next bend or anything. You were just really, really focused in that moment.
Yeah, in the best of times.
In the best, exactly, in the best of times, when you had those moments of performing really well, and also probably those moments were had a quality of clarity, not fogginess or dullness, but rather, I'm here, I'm really present, like that.
Yeah, again, in the best of times.
In the best of times, yes. So that's one example, like doing sports. But I mean, what could be another example? It could be, just we're trying to learn something new. We're reading a book, and if we don't have, I'm trying to gain some information, and if I'm reading this book and I'm really tense because maybe I don't know, studying for an exam. Thankfully, I'm not studying for exams anymore, but I remember how that was like. And so if I'm tense, that's not going to help my ability to learn. And also, if I'm very distracted, I can't. And you probably had this experience. You read a page and then you have to restart because you start thinking about something else, and then you read and then you restart because and then you put the book away because you can't really manage to get through one page because you're thinking of so many different things. And also, if we don't have if we don't have that clarity of being vividly aware of what we're reading and taking it in, if we're dull and like this, then that's also not helping. So in that situation as well, having a mind that's relaxed and stable and clear, it's extremely helpful. And I was, another example, I was reminded it's very brave, sitting in the front row. Oh, yeah. So I saw this. It was a discussion or a conversation between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Aaron Beck. And Aaron Beck I think he's still alive, but he's probably 95 years old. So he's the founder of cognitive behavioral psychology or cognitive psychology. And in this conversation, he was just reflecting on, in the research he has done, and he was saying that, when we get angry with someone, in my experience, 90% of what is actually upsetting us, making us angry, is our own projection. So, that this person might have done something that upset us, but you can probably recognize this. When you're really angry with someone, you don't see any positive qualities with that person. They're like 100% completely bad if you're really angry with them. It's not like you're going, well, he did that, but on the other hand, he's also been very nice, last week, and he also has all these positive qualities, really. We're not doing that when we're really angry. We just see bad person. And so what Aaron Beck was saying, that a lot of that is actually our own projections and our own inability to see things from different perspectives and so on. So also when we cultivate this ability of a stable attention and awareness, we can also start to turn that kind of inwards towards ourselves and become more aware of when, what thoughts are not helpful in this situation, what is an exaggeration, what are my habitual ways of reacting. So we kind of can turn that. It's like I don't know if you want to call it like a microscope or let's say microscope that we can turn towards our own experience. So we can become like scientists of our own minds and brains, and to start to figure out how we tick, and which can actually become really interesting. But that's also, if we want to change, if there's some aspect about ourselves that we would like to change, the first step in that process is always awareness. So we have to become aware of whatever the problem is. And once we do that, then we can start, whenever we have that impulse or that reaction, then we can, with awareness, we can catch it, and then we decide, okay, I'm not going to do what I usually do. I'm going to just take a little pause and then go this way. But that little pause requires awareness, presence, clarity, and so on. So that's a direct application of mindfulness, having that ability of seeing what is going on. And every time we do that, every time we catch something and choose a different way of reacting, then we're creating these new neural pathways in our brains, and we're just creating new ways of habitually reacting to things. So in that way, we can kind of reprogram our own reactions and our own brains over time. But without mindfulness, we're kind of lost in just autopilot and habits, and I don't know. Can you recognize that challenge? Like being impatient. I think that's a disease of modern society. I think we're just always reacting on impulse. So the first three sessions that we've been going through, and this is the last one, we've been cultivating this ability of attention, of mindfulness. Mindfulness just really meaning keeping whatever we choose in mind, or being just present with whatever's going on in the moment, and cultivating that ability. with relaxation, with focus or stability, and with clarity. And we've been using the breath as that object of attention. We need something to turn our attention towards if we're going to cultivate this ability of sustained, stable attention. So we've been doing focus training really with the breath as the object. And there's nothing particularly special about the breathing. It has some benefits. One being that it's always available for us. Hopefully, otherwise we have other problems and not enough attention, I guess, if the breath is gone. But it's there. I mean, if we're standing in the line to the supermarket, the breathing is there for us to return to focus on. And the breathing is also very interesting because it's in between the physical and the mental. So, for example, if you're very agitated, that will show directly in your breathing. It will become more shallow and less deep and so on. So it's both it's both physical but also mental in a way. So just by focusing on the breathing and cultivating more relaxation and stability, we're also affecting the whole nervous system, but also it has a mental effect. So the breathing it's a good object, but there's nothing special about it. And this is, as you've noticed, this is not a breathing exercise. You don't have to breathe in any particular way. It's just something to place our attention on, and then let the breath do its own thing, but use it as a way of just cultivating that focused, stable, and clear attention. So then, starting next time, we'll do what's called settling the mind. But then we will turn our attention to our own, the whole range of mental phenomena that's going on, like thoughts and emotions and impulses and memories and so on. So we'll start this ability of mindful attention that we've been cultivating using the breath. We'll turn that towards our own thoughts, and I'll come into that more next time. But that's very, very powerful, because then we can start to cultivate this ability of just observing thoughts and emotions and so on as they arise, without being immediately pulled into them, and without necessarily believing everything that pops into our head. So instead of being, a lot of times we're kind of slaves of our own minds. Our brains generate thoughts and we just take off in one direction or another. So this gives us the ability of becoming, masters of our own minds, and not being enslaved by thoughts like anxiety and worry and so on. The last three sessions, I won't mention so much about them now, but that then is about turning our mindfulness towards our own experience in the world around us, to start to see more clearly how things actually are, because a lot of the suffering and dissatisfaction and so on that we experience actually comes from misapprehending how things actually are. So, for example, we're going to talk about change. So intellectually, we all know that things change. I mean, we learn that in 9th grade physics in school. We all know that things change. But emotionally, habitually, we're not in tune with that basic fact of life. So we're kind of constantly struggling against change. We want things to be reliable. We don't want, if we buy a new iPhone, we don't want it to break. We want it to last forever, and then we drop it and get a crack in the screen and we get really upset. But if we were more in tune with how things actually are, we would realize that, okay, that is the inevitable outcome of everything. So things break. And if we're not so attached to the wish for things to stay permanent, then we suffer less. So just starting to look into, okay, what am I projecting onto reality that isn't really there, like permanence, for example. And we'll look at like what is the source of genuine satisfaction? What gives a stable, genuine joy in life? Is it the things, again, that are changing, that are conditioned, or can there be a deeper source of well-being that's maybe not dependent on, having the right job, getting the right partner, getting the right phone, and so on? So the last 3 sessions will be more about applying mindfulness into our own experience and cultivating what's in Buddhist psychology is called insight, and just getting more familiar with our own habitual patterns and thoughts and emotions and projections and so on. Okay. So a little bit more, and then I thought I would pose a question to you before we go on. But just a little recap of the 2 previous modules of relaxation and focus. So I don't know, how many of you have been doing any kind of meditation or mindfulness training since last? What are some? What have been some? I don't know, challenges. What do you find? What do you find difficult with the meditation or the mindfulness training?
Well, the first few times immediately after the lesson that we had here, I was really good. I kept on top of it for the first few days to the point where it actually began to feel essential. And I got irritated with myself throughout the day if I hadn't managed to get that. Started off with 5 minutes, then it was 6 minutes, then it was 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden it just dropped off, and I forgave myself way too easily and kept on forgiving myself every day afterwards. And I've noticed the difference. I mean, I was like sincere crashing depression kicked in not long afterwards. So it does strike me as a need. It's a little bit like drinking enough water. It's certainly, I don't know, some people might not have it as extreme a need as I do, but I apparently do.
Wow.
So that was it was unquestionably essential, and I've seen the consequences of denying that fact.
So it's been very, very helpful, and still difficult to get it done or get it in your, because it dropped off, you say?
Yeah. It just like I say, I just missed one.
Yeah.
And that was it. I guess it's the sort of mirror of quitting smoking. I mean, once you have quit, and then you have one.
Yeah.
Then you're back into the smoking world again.
Yeah.
The hooks in your mouth, and you're out of the water again.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's the inverse of that. It's like finding this. I mean, I've got 2 settings on my phone, one for 6 minutes and one for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just got this different chime on my phone. It's different from my alarm clock. So there's something very. It kind of solidifies and brands the experience as, like I say, sacred, essential, absolutely perfect. Well done, you've done it, kind of thing. That's what this little thing does at the end of that stopwatch.
Yeah.
And quite why I haven't consider myself worthy of such a daily experience. I don't have a deep enough answer for that.
No.
It's interesting. It's the motivation flies away. It starts to sit down.
Yeah. So that, I think, that effect, you miss, or we miss once, and then we kind of, that's what psychologists call the fuck it effect. I kept on track, and then, but then we're on a diet, and then, but I can have one piece of chocolate, and then we've had one piece of chocolate, and I'll fuck it, and then just, I don't know if it's the clinical term, but you probably recognize the tendency.
I have seen the joke commercial for a drug called Fuck It All.
Oh.
This is when you're depressed and everything sucks. Fuck it all.
Yeah.
Just take one of these tablets and end it.
That's, yeah. Okay. No, but it's. I think it's interesting. Does anyone else have that experience of it? Finding this is really helpful, and still it's so hard to get it in that daily schedule. Yeah. So that is. We are really interesting that way. Why do we do the things that are not good for us, and why don't we do the things that are good for us? Silly. Yeah.
It's undeniable.
Yeah.
After all said and done, a lot more is said than done.
Yeah. So that is, I think the only way is to create a habit. So it just becomes, like I guess most of you don't skip brushing your teeth in the morning, probably. It just happens 2 times per day at the same time, because it's a deeply, deeply ingrained habit. And it's kind of the same with this. We have to find and create that habit. And it's certainly, you can also, it's forgiving yourself is excellent, so we don't beat ourselves up. We can always restart. It doesn't matter if we failed 1,000,000 times. We can just, each day is fresh, it's new. We can restart, and then we have another opportunity to create that habit. Yeah.
Question: Is it possible to do the meditation while you're in movement? Like when you're running and or walking, as I said last time.
Yeah.
Because I feel when I move,
Yeah.
I have much easier to just connect with my breathing and just finding clarity than when I actually sit still.
Yeah, it's most definitely. So you don't have to sit down. You can walk. You can run. Anything can become mindfulness training or meditation. Same principle. I mean, driving a car can become a meditation. You probably shouldn't close your eyes, but you can focus on you can focus on the physical sensations in the body, and maybe visual cues, and just be present in a relaxed way. If you're walking, focus on your feet, focus on your breathing, leave the thoughts and come. Same principle, but so it's definitely when moving, walking.
Yeah. I was thinking we've been me and my husband, we were both in this, and we tried the meditations, and we tried it for quite with the breathing, but then we started talking about it, and he was like, the breathing it's not for me.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe you can have something else as a focus point, which became then the sounds around. And I've also been trying that, and for me it makes it easier somehow to get into it. But I don't know if this, not focusing on the breathing, I guess it's just a focus point that you're searching for.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to, so when we come into session 4 and 5, then we focus, anything that happens in awareness, like sounds, thoughts, It can be, you can watch, use a candle as a, visual perception, or auditory perception, tactile perception. It doesn't, or mental things like thoughts, or, and actually in session 5 we're just focusing on the experience of being aware in itself. Might sound weird, but we'll get there. And for many people, that's just, wow, I really enjoyed this. Was so much easier than the breathing, and so it's an individual thing, and there's no dogma, or you have to do it this way. Just it's kind of like an art form. Use whatever works. Sound perfect. Okay. So the first module, we emphasized relaxation, and I'll keep emphasizing that, because one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we try to tense up, and we're leading such incredibly stressful, busy, hectic lives. So we all run around with levels of stress that, if you just go back to the 50s, it would have been regarded as pathological, or people would have thought we were sick if we had this much stress that each and every one of us do today. And certainly if you go back to when a couple of thousand years back in, I don't know, Tibet or China or somewhere, you can imagine when they started doing meditation, and they didn't have they're sitting there watching yaks or something. They didn't have the levels of stress that we have. So actually relaxation isn't that, if you look at old meditation manuals, it's not that emphasized. But for us, it's just crucial. So in the meditation we did, we were just observing the whole flow of the breath, and using the out breath to really release and relax. And we talked about doing that also in daily life. So if you have an opportunity and you remember, then just 3 breaths where you breathe in and just release all thoughts, all tension, in the car, on the bike, in the supermarket, at the desk at work. That can be very powerful, to just come back and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, get some relaxation, and just release. So relaxation, extremely important, because if we don't have that and we start to try to build focus on top of tension, it's just not gonna be sustainable. And then last time we met, we talked about cultivating focus, and then so this is about, again, the stable attention, the intention that doesn't go off into distractions, the past, the future, this and that, blah blah blah, but rather stays present. So then we were using the abdomen as the object, so watching the breathing in the movement of the belly. Sometimes it's difficult for some to find the breathing in the belly, so then we kind of move up until we find it. It's up here, and then we just observe it here. But try to just drop down into the belly and using. So now we have a bit of more of a narrow focus, and we started looking at, so when we get distracted, when thoughts come, how we can just release them and return our attention. Then it stays there for a while, and it goes off. We release that and come back. And we also introduced counting. So either you can use noting, just breathing in, breathing out, or we introduced counting. So we breathe in, breathe out, count 1, breathe in, breathe out, count 2, up to 10, and then we went backwards down to 1 again. So I don't know, has anyone used the counting and found it? Do you find it helpful?
wasn't there last time, but I did that already.
Okay.
But yeah, I find it very helpful because it's kind of a focus point more than the breathing or the feeling of,
Mm. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I missed last that session, but so I just have a few questions about counting. Is there any like indications on how to use the counting? Because I think I heard something about that. You said you should count like one is like breathe in, breathe out. You shouldn't count like one breathe in, two breathe out.
No, I mean there's
Maybe doesn't matter.
there's many ways of counting. The one I introduced is then you count each full breath. So you breathe in, breathe out, and 1. So in, out, 2, and then you go up to 10. And when you reach 10, you go backwards. So 9, 8, 7, 6 down, and then you just circle like that. And the reason to stop at 10 is because it's so easy to get in an autopilot. 11, 12, 13, 14. Usually we do that anyway, so when you're supposed to stop at 10, we just keep going. So we're counting and thinking about something. And so that keeps us alert. And sometimes we only get to 3, and we get distracted. Then we just come back, start from 1 again. And so usually the main focus would still be the breathing. So just staying with the physical sensations of the breath, with as much being as absorbed in that as we can, and then we kind of just drop a 1 in there. So it's the focus would normally be the counting, but that's also okay. Yeah, just as a little reminder whether we're focused or not, the counting can be helpful. If you're not helped by the counting, just drop it. It's not mandatory or necessary. Okay, so let's get into clarity and what we're going to do today. But I thought before we do that, it would be good if you could pair up, or 3, and I think we're even pairs. We're even pairs, and then discuss with your. We'll do that for a few minutes, like 3-4 minutes, and just discuss with the person next to you. See if you can find a situation where you had a lot of mental clarity. Like, other terms would be like vividness or like a high definition attention. Hopefully can you kind of understand what I'm getting at? So rather than being, dull and foggy, we had that really sharp and clear and crisp present. It's usually very, very, when we get into that mode, it's actually usually very, it's very enjoyable, at least, that kind of clarity. And talk to each other and see if you can identify situations in life where you experienced just vividness, clarity, sharpness of attention. And then I'll come back in a few minutes and see what you came up with.
Det första jag kommer att tänka på faktiskt är att det är någonting så här som man har gått omkring och grubblat och tänkt, man inte riktigt man hittar inte någon lösning på det, eller man ser inte riktigt på vilket sätt man skulle kunna göra så här, och man pratar med någon. Det kan jag tycka vara större hjälp av någon annan och vara själv liv som körs. Jag hade en bra daglig under några månader, så typ
so unusual.
förväntan.
Det hjälpte till.
Kind of like context.
Ja.
Just hypnotic almost, and I got stuck on that track over and over for a week. And then just a little bit behind trees, sunlight, and I really, it was really interrupting the tone or something.
I felt like
Really long. Where I woke up on Sunday, I wasn't sure what the plan is because I've been away from work so long. It was something about that, by experiencing that. Yeah, but especially it was specific. Thinking about the fireworks, and he noticed that every time he went away, he never thought about it the whole time. It was environmental. Something about the conditions, the environment, the meaning, all of that sort of stuff.
Funkar ju så jävla mycket sämre än
very much also the church also. Whenever I went for a walk by myself in nature,
Okay, so what did you come up with? What are some examples?
good sleep.
Good sleep. Yeah. After or during? No.
Yeah, I had the same on that one. Because I can really tell the difference. It's most like those things when I haven't really slept well, it's just like quite interesting to observe the mind. It's like, it's like, oh please, I just have to finish this assignment. And then the other days when I have slept well, for me it's usually like all the social stuff usually just flows those days. I tell laughs and people get it, and also I don't put as much effort into things. I just put enough effort and it flows, sort of like that.
And on the other days you end up spending unnecessary energy with less results.
And I try to tell jokes and they people don't get them. So I just realized, no, I'm just going to take it easy this day and sit in this corner. One of those days.
Never tell jokes on less than 7 hours sleep.
Yes. You just get stressed from it.
And so perhaps also then some mindfulness training can enhance your joke telling success,
Yes,
perhaps.
I think so. Might be fun as well.
Yeah.
We were also talking about help from others. If you're stuck with something and you can't really sort it out yourself, even though you've tried, then if you talk to a clever friend, he or she might help you to clarify your problem.
Yeah.
So help from others can be beneficial as well.
Yeah.
For clarity.
Yeah.
We had somewhat common theme, I would say, right? So shall I speak for me or for us? Okay. For us. Good. Well, nature, very much so. Yeah. And you mentioned this weekend, but I mentioned when I was in the mountains and silence. So it's kind of very clear for me.
Yeah.
When it comes to silence, and also especially in the nature and mountains especially, you're like super clear.
Yeah.
It's like you just get it. Everything's like you said, high definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think there's something to do with the environment creating the provocations for your mind to calculate. When you're in an environment that is grotesquely out of order and just demanding, obviously the state of mind is undoubtedly affecting that. And when you're in the countryside without anybody else around, there's certainly less with regards to like etiquette challenges and
Yeah.
what have you. So there's a lot more liberty for the creature in mind, I guess.
Yeah. And it sounds like you both agree that it's an enjoyable state of mind to have that clarity. If I'm not reading too much into it, you just
And I think one of the clear goal with mindfulness would be to feel that independent of the actual external environment. So
yeah.
you kind of feel that when you kind of help, your assistant to get supported. But I would say one of the goals would be like you don't want to be affected by, a victim of the action. I want to help be able to access to that.
Yeah.
Anytime, anywhere.
Because it is a capacity of our mind to have that clarity, but we kind of need certain stimulus to arise for it to happen. So for some people, they describe I'm a piano player, and sometimes I can have that vividness, or I'm a mountain climber, or I go horseback riding, or I'm in the nature, or I go jogging, and then I can experience this clarity. But like you say, imagine having that in any situation. Like I'm doing my tax returns, and it's just vividly amazing, or whatever.
But it must so be a greater challenge to be mindful in a big city than at the countryside, for instance.
Yeah.
So one can also think about this is healthy, sustainable environment.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Do we have to be in this mess? Like is it? Yeah.
Just got kind of amused by the idea of counting your breaths in time with going through all your deductions that you're working out how much money you're losing.
Mindful of anxiety. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking some days you're in the flow or you got the flow.
Yeah.
And nothing seems hard or heavy or it's just so easy, and that's when you feel like you talked about sport earlier. You know it's going to go well.
Yeah.
Already in the morning, you know you're in balance with everything.
Yeah.
And that's then you feel clarity, I think.
Yeah.
Those days.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you.
Doesn't matter if it's work or life.
No, exactly.
Life, it's the same.
Yeah. Flow.
I have clarity when I'm not
yeah. And when we're not multitasking all over the place, but really maybe, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. One of my personal experiences of this stuff is like kind of a sense of time or things slowing down. So I can almost feel like when I have periods when I'm not taking care of my practice, it's like things start to speed up and I have less time for everything. But when I'm taking care of my practice, it's like, okay, there's more time for things. So it's actually a sense of things slowing down a bit. But also, and we'll get to that point, but it's in the beginning, it's crucial to create environments that are supportive to the practice when we start to practice. So we have a quiet place where we can sit down and some time allocated and so on, and maybe trying to create that space throughout the day as well.
Yeah, we talked about that, the difficulty of creating a new habit, and another thing connected to that is, I guess, myself included, you start to become interested in meditation and mindfulness when you see a problem. You experience a problem yourself.
Yeah.
And you are looking for a way out. And then, maybe as time goes by, and with the help of meditation, that problem is decreasing. And at that time, that's a crucial moment, I think, as well. When it comes to continuing the practice, it's very, very easy to feel that, okay, it's all right now. I don't need it anymore. Or, it's sort of, it's not your focus anymore.
No. Until the next crisis. The good thing with life, though, is that all you have to do is wait, and then the next crisis will come and shake you up again. So you don't have to worry. There will be another crisis, unfortunately. Okay, so this clarity. How do we cultivate that? And we have this. So again, we talked about this before. We have this tendency of if we need to really do something, and there have to be clarity, can't be dullness, and we tend to tense up, and we really put a lot of effort into it, and I have to get those tax returns done. But so there's clarity there, but it's kind of a forced type of attention. And then the other modus operandi is then when we relax, we just go completely dull, and we just collapse in the couch and like, what's on Netflix? So that's our relaxation mode. So we really have to cultivate this ability of a relaxed attention that can be sustained. So again, relaxation is the foundation. And we had this example of the tree so the clarity is all the branches and details and leaves, and so maybe the interesting stuff. But to have that clarity, there needs to be this stable trunk of focus and stability. Otherwise, we can't have the clarity. And in order for that to exist, we need to have those deep, deep roots of relaxation. So we have to take care of this sequence of focusing first on relaxation, then more on stability, and on top of that, the clarity will kind of come naturally and evolve from that training. But specifically, if we want to emphasize this aspect of clarity, this is the practice that we'll do. So we'll soon go into a meditation session. But so first we had the full body breathing for the relaxation part. Then we had a focus on the abdomen for the stability part. And now we're going to move the focus up to the nostrils. So just, you might notice when you do the practice that when you breathe in, the nostrils get a bit colder, cold air coming, and then when you breathe out, the nostrils get a bit warmer from the air that's been heated. So there's some interesting physical sensations going on that you can pay attention to. But the thing with the nostrils, or you can either observe the actual nostrils or just the area below them. But we're kind of limiting the target, so we're making the target smaller. So in order to pay attention to that, we need a bit more clarity. So by doing that, we're kind of creating the need for a bit more clarity. Also, when we bring the attention up, so bringing the attention down is helpful for relaxation. Bringing the attention up is a bit helpful for clarity. You can also, if you feel dull, you can also like open your eyes to let some light in to activate the nervous system. But then there's this really, when we observe the breathing there, this is really interesting, like a biofeedback loop that's happening. So when we start focusing and we get into the practice, we start focusing on the breathing, we relax, and then our breathing usually naturally becomes a bit more relaxed, a bit deeper, and a bit more subtle. So then it's more difficult to observe the breathing because the sensations are not as strong. So therefore we need more clarity, and the more clarity we get, if it's a relaxed clarity, the more subtle the breathing gets. So it's really interesting that, and then if we get distracted and we get thinking about something, maybe get a little anxious, agitated, then the breathing becomes more rough again and deeper. So then it's again easier to observe the breathing because it's stronger, more forceful. So it really it's like a interesting self-regulating system when we start observing the breathing here. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but you can kind of experience that yourself when we do the meditation, that kind of biofeedback loop. It's like before, it's important not to control the breath, so you don't have to breathe in any particular way. Just let it do its own thing. Like maybe you sit outside in a summer day and the wind kind of blows. Don't have to control it. It does its own thing, but you just observe it. Nice summer breeze on my skin. Like nice sensations of breathing on my nostrils. I don't know if there's a parallel there. And also just observe the actual sensation, so we don't project, we don't think about the breath or project any thoughts onto it. Just the bare attention to the actual physical sensations without any mental projections as much as possible. And try to sustain a continuity. So you follow the whole in-breath, and then there might be a little gap. You notice that gap, and then you follow the whole out-breath. Might be another gap, full in-breath. So just try to keep, we're watching this one point, but just try to follow the whole sensation of the breathing in that one point. And use the counting if it's helpful, just like before, like I described. And yeah, and I think with that we should go into some actual meditation. Any questions on this one, observing the breath at the nostrils and focusing on clarity? So we'll do, like before, we'll do 20-minute session. And again, please do lie down if it's the most comfortable and suitable posture. I don't know if you can. Sorry, I forgot your name, but I don't think you can do any jogging. And this, you can jog around in the back, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do some
Jumping jacks, mindfully observing the breath. Okay. Yeah, it's good to bring some some joy and some appreciation into the meditation. So just whenever we do this, it's good to remind ourselves that it's really, really precious in the lives that we are leading, to put some time aside just for ourselves, just to in a way get to know ourselves and cultivate some wholesome qualities, and just spending that time with ourselves. It's actually extremely precious. So we don't turn it into a hardship, I have to do this, and I should be better at this, and blah, blah, blah. But really give yourself that space to relax and appreciate the fact that you're giving yourself these minutes, just paying attention to your own experience, letting go of all else in your life that might be happening. So we can start by finding a nice, comfortable posture that embodies alertness, but at the same time it's relaxed, stable. Just allow your weight to be carried by the chair or the floor. Just allowing the body to settle, allowing the breath to settle, allowing the mind to just settle. Settle in its natural state. Giving yourself permission to let go of all expectations. Bringing a kind and curious and warm attention to your own experience. taking care to let go of tensions. So maybe relaxing your face. We hold a lot of tension usually in our facial muscles. See if you can let that little wrinkle between the eyes just release, relax. And let your face be like the face of a sleeping baby, just completely relaxed, soft. Allowing the shoulders to drop down. And then becoming aware of the sensations of your breathing. So at first just following the full movement of the breath. Using the out breath to release and relax. Breathe in and then breathe out and just let go of thoughts, tension. And on the basis of this relaxation, without straining or forcing, just see if you can gently move your attention to the nostrils and see if you can connect with the sensations of the breath in that area. And just be curious about how it actually feels, how the breathing actually feels. Noticing maybe when you breathe in how it becomes a little cooler in that area, and you breathe out a little warmer. Just paying close attention to the flow of air. And if you find it helpful, you can add the counting. notice that you become distracted by thoughts, sounds, emotions. So just gently release them and take the opportunity to relax so you don't tense up. And then kind of reboot your attention. Gently bring it back to the sensations at the nostrils again and see if you can enhance clarity, vividness. Really paying close attention. And if you're using the counting now, I would invite you to release the counting and instead, as you pay attention to the sensations at the nostrils, so when you breathe in, you use the in-breath to heighten or increase vividness, clarity, high definition, kind of like turning up a dimmer in a room. And then when you breathe out, you use the out breath to release and relax. you breathe in, enhance clarity, vividness. Breathe out and relax. And then finally towards the end of this meditation, you can release the focus on the nostrils, making your attention more broad. Maybe just follow the whole movement of the breath in the body. Maybe just enjoying the simple act of breathing. Okay, I just wanted to I give some basic. So there are these two basic challenges that we have in meditation, and one is distraction. So that's like one end of the spectrum where, lots of thoughts going in a million directions, like what's this circus doing in my head kind of thing. So that's one type of challenge, and I think you can recognize it probably. And then the other challenge is instead dullness or sluggishness, or when we sometimes we do fall asleep. So we do the nodding meditation. Probably recognize that as well. So just some ideas on how to counteract those two tendencies, because we really want to find the middle path between. We have to exert some effort. So if we want to have this clarity, there's something needs to happen, but at the same time we don't want to tense up and force and exert too much energy, but we also don't want to get into dullness and so on. So finding that, it's kind of an art form of just finding that perfect balance between distraction and dullness. So overcoming distractions, that's what we've been talking about. When we realize that our attention has been kidnapped and we're off on some trip, then when we catch that, instead of, sometimes we tend to think, oh, I shouldn't be distracted, I'm such a bad meditator, blah, blah, blah. Instead, just really recognize that is a moment of mindfulness. That very recognition of distraction is exactly what the practice is all about. So it's fantastic, just pat yourself on the back, be happy that we caught that distraction, and then take the opportunity to really relax. So we don't, tense up. Oh, I have to keep my focus. But really, I catch my distraction and then relax, and then just release it. You don't have to follow. You have your own permission to not follow any specific. Even if it's the greatest idea ever, you can just, with good conscience, just let it go and come back, and then so return your attention. So the formula here is relax, release, and return. So you find yourself doing that a lot.
Trying to relax is a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it is. But what you can do is well, there are a few things that we definitely can do. We can pay attention to the tendency to force our attention or tense up, and we can also. So if we're in the beginning of the meditation, I'm giving instructions about just paying attention to where there might be tension, and then focusing on this sense of releasing and letting go. That we can do, but voluntarily relax, it is tricky, definitely. Okay, and then the other end of the spectrum, the dullness, when we get into, and sometimes that can be really nice. It's like, maybe I'm meditating now because this feels so cozy and warm and fluffy, but there's no vividness, there's no attention, there's no awareness. So the formula here, if you want to call it that, is refresh, restore, and retain. So when we notice the distraction, we take the opportunity to really refresh our focus. So I used the metaphor of turning up a dimmer. I don't know could you relate to that? So you really intentionally cultivate some more vividness. And you reboot, you restore, you come back to the object. And again, we always try to have a sense of curiosity and interest in our own experience. We kind of restore that, reboot that, and come back. It doesn't matter how many times we go off. Every time is an opportunity to restore and come back, start anew. And then we try to retain that continuous flow of mindfulness. And then we'll lose it. And then we just do it all over again. So that catching the distractions and coming back, it's like, you go to the gym and lift that weight. It's exactly the same, but here you're strengthening the insula and the hippocampus and the parts of the prefrontal cortex. You're literally creating new neural pathways that are related to attention regulation and emotion regulation. But it's actually that catching the attention and bringing it back. That is building that muscle. So it's becoming distracted is not in any way a problem. It's actually what the practice is, cultivating that awareness. And then just a few things on how to support the practice. Taking care of the body is very good. So sleeping, excellent preparation for meditations. Reasonable diet. You can try this, have a lot of sugar and then sit down and meditate and see if that maybe affects experience. And just take care of your exercise. A lot of interesting research coming out on the connection between a healthy brain and just good exercise. So those are like the fundamentals. And then, take care of, just experiment with a good posture where you can it's good to have a straight back, but at the same time you need to be relaxed. So sometimes maybe lying down can be a really good option, especially in the beginning. You can experiment with what happens if you have your eyes closed, what happens if you have them open. You don't have to close your eyes to meditate or practice mindfulness. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's actually more helpful to have them open. And then the environment, just like I said, create a space. And this is also part of creating that habit. So create a space where you have a bit of peace and quiet. Maybe do it at a time when you won't get interrupted. Unfortunately for people with family like myself, that means getting up earlier than everyone else a lot of the time. And just make sure that it's a good temperature. It's not, if it's a dark room, then you may get too dull. So make sure it has appropriate lighting and just things that you can do to support the practice, like external factors. I like the idea of having a bell that actually reminds you or is correlated with doing the practice. So sometimes you can kind of make a little, have things that reminds you of what's happening, and that can be anything. It can be a bell on your phone. It can be I sit down in a certain space every time, or someone might light a candle, whatever, something that kind of triggers or reminds the whole mind-body system that, okay, now meditation is happening. I mentioned before that it's better to have shorter sessions with more quality than trying to do really long sessions that have poor quality. It's better to have 5 minutes where you actually feel fresh and relaxed and attentive than just keep going, and it's the body starts to hurt, and you're just torturing yourself, and it's a pain in the ass. So better with shorter sessions than longer, especially in the beginning. And finally, we started talking about the challenge of, okay, so I feel that this is really good for me, but still it's so hard to get into my daily routine. And it's good from that perspective to remind ourselves of what are some of the benefits. And I think when we start to practice, we find those benefits. We know what they are. And they're everything from, just decreased stress and increased well-being, and we'll start to notice that, okay, I'm able to be present with my kids, with my spouse or my partner, with my friends, my colleagues, and this kind of brings an added quality in my life where I'm more present with the people who actually mean something to me. And those people are starting to comment that, something has changed. It's like you're listening to me now. I like it. It's nice. So there's a lot of benefits. And also something that we'll get into more in the following sessions, but really paying attention to, like, what is the source of well-being? What is the source of happiness? What is the source of joy? Are those things coming from, whatever we acquire? Of course, when we get a new car, we get happy, but then the car breaks and we get distressed. We win the lottery and, we become very happy, and then you wait a few weeks and we're back to baseline again. So those things are very transient. It's like we have this baseline, and then we oscillate. So something wonderful happens, and then something bad happens, and we go up and down. So this kind of training, what it can help us do is kind of raise that baseline. So, sometimes people think that meditation is somehow, about we should feel less. We should be like more, stable emotionally, but that's not true. You will still, you will feel the same joy, the same despair. But what happens is that we tend to return to baseline quicker, and we're able to raise that baseline because we start to realize that, okay, genuine happiness, genuine well-being can actually come from inside. It can happen when we start to cultivate some positive inner qualities. And that kind of well-being is much more stable than whatever we can get from a career or whatever it is, a nice meal or so. All of these things are fantastic. Mindfulness will help us enjoy them more, but at the same time, we can find a different source of well-being and contentment and so on, raising the baseline. So whatever benefits you find, and you shouldn't just take my word for it, but look in your experience. What happens when I do this? What are the benefits? And then remind yourself of those. So that's a way of really motivating yourself, especially those days when it feels like a very horrible, boring, terrible idea to sit down and do meditation. There's so many things I have to do. But then really emphasize the importance of, okay, I'm doing this every day. I'm creating a habit because I know it's good for me, even though I feel shitty today. Maybe that's the day I need it the most. And then it's good to remind yourself of what are the benefits. Why do I want to do this in the first place? So those are some tips on both overcoming some of the obstacles, but also to create and sustain a habit of doing this. So, any questions or comments or reflections?
Have you mentioned the Insight Timer, the app?
No?
Do you know it? Are you using it?
I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I found that it's pretty helpful. So it's like an app, and you sign up, very simple profile, and when you start meditating, you can see who's online. So you feel like you're in a community of people all around the world meditating.
Yeah.
And you can add friends if you like, and sometimes you get a message from someone in like Canada saying, "Thank you for meditating with me."
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really nice. I enjoy it too. And you can choose from a lot of guided meditations and talks, and it's like a whole social
it's like a network.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Insight Timer. I'll show you the icon looks like this. That's the
Cool. That's nice.
Yeah.
Through this woman I know on Facebook alone, she's in New York.
Mm-hmm.
She has this page called The Daily Breath,
Mm.
where she takes a break from her work and just videos her doing a breath, which you're supposed to watch and breathe,
Oh.
breathe with. And whenever I go to someone else, I tend to remember these, so I send her a breath video back, and she shares them on her page every now and then.
So I will write down. Okay. Okay, so here are a list of a few apps that might help you. Actually, I think I'll add one. Maybe I'll change this one.
Are they basically the same?
Yeah, they are. Hold on, I'll just put this up again. They're very similar. I mean, they all come from different backgrounds. So, for example, John Kabat-Zinn, he is the founder of something called mindfulness-based stress reduction. He's one of the pioneers of mindfulness in the West. And so he's doing his thing, following that program. So they have their differences, but that's also a reason why it's good to look into different ones. So Mind of the Leader and Potential Project, they actually they follow pretty closely how I teach mindfulness here, because they're based on the same kind of curriculum. And then there are many others. So have a look, but it can be very helpful to actually use an app, which is interesting because those damn smartphones is one of the reasons why we're so distracted these days. It's such a challenge because, research shows that we pick our phone up like 200 times, literally every day. So I'm a bit bored. I can immediately, distract myself instead of just, being with whatever's going on.
If you look at it the whole time, you can really bring that number down drastically.
Yeah, which, some people do. I only take it out once every day. It's in the morning. Yeah, I remember I was in Singapore and like every fourth person seemed to be watching a movie while they were walking in the subway. It's just crazy. People just walking around watching movies in the subway. Yeah, Brave New World.
I heard a story about one of these Zen Buddhist joke things. This businessman goes to see a Zen master about advice on calming his mind down. It says do 10 minutes of meditation a day, and sends him away. Because he comes back a couple of weeks later, he says, so how did it go? He says, well, I never found the time to do it. He said, oh, very well, then do 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had an executive of a large company that I was working with. He said that, I always do we always suggest 10 minutes, just like that. I always do my 10 minutes of mindfulness every day, except for the days when I feel, in the morning I wake up and I'm so stressed because I have so much I have to get done. Those days I do 20 minutes. So he gotten that point.
He had felt the benefits.
Yeah, he knew that if he got those 20 minutes in, he would get through that crazy day so much better. So, yeah. Okay, any more questions? Any questions on the practice we did today? Was there challenges or any insights or?
It was interesting to change the focal point to up here than down there.
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, it was just, it was totally different perspective. I mean, it literally was an alternative perspective on the whole process. That was very interesting. But plus I also got like a cultural image. The moment you mentioned targeting the nostrils, I immediately got a flash of memory from the film Star Wars with the thermal exhaust port. It has these two holes out of it where Luke shoots the. So I had this. So I immediately had that. So my breath was the weapon from the X-wing fighter going down into my stomach, the centre of the Death Star, and then the breath coming back out was the annihilation of evil.
Okay. Death Star exploding.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was interesting. Merely from that, like it was just so immediate an image that I couldn't argue with it. I had to write it out. It was just.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that's the first time I've heard that.
I can honestly say it's the first time I've said it.
Sounds hugely beneficial.
It was interesting. Well, it's got that sort of depth of mythology reference to it as well. I mean, it's got it has all those archetypes present, and cosmos and story and meaning and achievement, and it was a really interesting image.
Wow, fantastic.
I have a small question.
Yep.
I don't know if it's on focus or clarity. It's probably more on focus. Is it good or bad when you find yourself being so concentrated with something, perhaps pleasant or unpleasant, but that you shut out everything else? You can't actually hear anything around you, and you realize that when somebody's basically like, "Hello, I'm talking to you." Like, is that good or bad when you find that kind of concentration?
When would that happen? Do you have an?
That happens to me like when I would dive into some big Excel files, working with a lot of graphs and patterns or strategy, for instance, work. Then I find myself like I haven't heard anything for the past hour or something.
And do you get more work done with a higher quality? Would you say?
The work is done like efficiently.
Yeah.
But you feel like an idiot when you wake up. You're like, whoa.
Well, I would say, I mean, it's in relation to the work, it's a very good thing, because you're not allowing yourself to. I mean, you're doing what you set out to do with a single-pointed, absorbed mind. It's fantastic, and I'm guessing that it also, or I should ask you, does it feel good to be in that?
I mean, it feels good in the sense that you're very productive and you get things done and you're like in it, and it feels good to be in there. So.
Yeah, so that's what people call flow. It's an amazing state of mind. But at the same time, it has drawbacks. Like, the office is on fire and burning to the ground, and you're doing Excel sheets. So I think people get upset because you're not listening to them, whatever. So I think it's one of the things that mindfulness training allows us to do is to go into flow when it's appropriate, but then have a more broad awareness when that is appropriate, so we can kind of choose. So we're in control of our own attention. Okay, now I'm focusing, now I'm more receptive, because now it just tends to happen. Some days you're there, some days not. So it's not good or bad, but it's good if we can get the ability to kind of go into that state if we want to be there, and yeah. So I thought it sounded nice in relation to the spreadsheets. Sorry?
For me, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I usually get like that when I'm drawing or painting, or I think it's been like 5 minutes and it's been an hour, and I'm like, whoa, where did that hour go? But for me, it's very relaxing.
Yeah.
Focus on something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a defense of open space office as well, because I'm over 50 and I have a problem with the open space office. I have a problem. I'm too curious and listening to everyone, and I can really, so I think
Yeah.
we need to get into to shut out the sound.
Yeah.
We also have an open space, and it's a lot of sound, so maybe it's like the mind's own defense system just shutting it up.
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel like I talk all the time. There's this clinical psychologist coming out of Canada at the moment called Jordan Peterson, who he does a lot of lectures about psychology and personality traits, but also like brings it into line with the foundational stories of Western civilization. I mean, it's quite curious. And he said something that has just stuck with me. He said it's something to do with borders. There's something about borders. There's something very digital about our minds that are to do with whether we have a wall or whether we don't have a wall on many issues that we're dealing with. And it's this idea of having working in an open space, being able to actually focus means that you're actually creating a border, and not permitting information to come in.
Yeah.
Or you have those borders down. So, but the thing about these borders is that we don't know whether a border or no border is a good thing. It always depends on the context of the moment that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
With regards to cultural clashes and stuff like that, some people think that restraint is a virtue, whereas other people think that freedom is a virtue. And you automatically got a clash. It's got nothing to do with the will of the perpetrators, but everything to do with the context of the meeting.
Yeah. So, which means also that in some contexts that kind of focus is appropriate. Sometimes it's with the more borders. Sometimes it's more appropriate with a more receptive, open, more borderless attention.
A contemporary example, we were talking about this safe space culture that's coming out of universities right now, where they're trying to protect people from harmful information, so they want a safe space. But you find that the people from that kind of open way of thinking is that they're very much for the open border idea of everybody should be free to move around. But what they don't understand is a safe space has to be defined by borders. So they're just basically saying, I want my borders, but you can't have your borders because I need to see everything that you're keeping me from seeing. So that it's a kind of it's a sort of border dispute. And one last thing, only because it's something it blew me away when I heard it. It's just really quite amazing. One of the most traumatic and desperate situations of our time is this business with Israel and the Middle East and history and just all sort of this culmination. Israel means to wrestle. He who wrestles with God. That's what the word means. Whereas Islam means submit. So if you're faced with the divine, you have two options. You either struggle against it and build up your whatever, or you submit to it and accept the universality. So they're both virtues. and they both deliver different results, but again, because of context.
Mm.
Yes.
So you look at context and you judge who's got better and who's got whatever, and then you end up with this oppressor dynamic, isn't it? So if somebody's better off, so this is where the Cain and Abel story comes in. So if you're feeling worse off, you get all these negative emotions that are challenges to your state of being.
Mm.
Whereas if you're doing well, you get more liberty, you expose yourself more to threats, and it's just blowing my head off at the moment. I just love it. I just, there's one last border left, and I think it's the stratosphere of the planet. Because if everybody pointed up, we'd all be pointing somewhere else. But if we all pointed down, we'd all be pointing at the same thing. We could agree on down, and up is negotiable.
It is all negotiable. It's all relative. And I think just a general take home is that when we become more aware, when we become more flexible, then we can see what is appropriate. We also have the ability to not get locked into certain interpretations and certain views. We have the mental flexibility to assume different views and see different perspectives. And this is also a benefit of doing this kind of training. Okay. Running over today. Sorry about that. I'm going to wrap up and give you something to do for the next week until we meet again. So in the morning, if you're able to do some practice in the morning, that's fantastic. You can do 15 minutes of meditation in the morning. And I realized that it should not say mindfulness of breathing abdomen here. It should say mindfulness of breathing nostrils, which is what we've been doing today. And so this is practicing the clarity aspect. And I personally find it's very good also in the morning to set a positive intention for the day, whatever it is. This I'm going to benefit others as much as I can might sound a bit grand, but that's I feel that if I set that kind of motivation, it kind of colors my day in a very positive way. But just today I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be kind to others. I'm going to see if I can cultivate the good qualities in myself and others. And in order to do that, I will need some relaxation and clarity and focus, so I can be present with myself, I can be present with others. And that's why I'm doing this 15 minutes in the morning, so I can contribute positively to myself and to others. And with that kind of motivation, we do our practice, and then we just head out into the day. It's a really good way of collecting ourselves and setting a good intention in the morning. Then just throughout the day, you can do this 3-breath exercise. Whenever we remember to do it, or we can even set a little timer that goes off. I think the Insight meditation timer has this thing that says bing a few times during the day. Yeah. So a little reminder. And then just on the first in-breath, breathe in and notice if there's some tension, we're holding tension, and then when we breathe out, see if we can relax it, like letting the shoulders drop down, and just relaxing the face, or maybe sometimes we walk around with our fist clenched, and just see if I can just relax on the out-breath. Scanning and releasing. And then the second in-breath, we just focus on the breath. So stable focus and letting go. And then the third breath, we increase clarity and let go. And then just in 3 breaths, 45 seconds if they're slow breaths, 10 seconds if you're very shallow, but after a very shallow breath. But just in that short period, you can come from feeling very stressed and tense and, dull to really relaxed and stable and clear. So just try it out. If you can, season your days with 5 moments like that, it's going to make a huge difference on the average quality of that day. And then finally, in the evening, you can use in yoga it's called the Shavasana posture, the corpse posture. When you're lying there in bed, you do a bit of mindfulness meditation. So you can start out with focused meditation on the abdomen or the nostrils, releasing the thoughts of the day, collecting your attention, and then when you feel that you're getting drowsy, you're kind of ready to just release and go to sleep, then you can move out of the posture. So you stop the meditation, maybe roll over on the side or just do something. You can just, if you're lying like this, you can just flip your hands over. Just do something to signal to yourself that this is the end of the meditation and now I'm kind of slipping into sleep. So you're kind of riding that wave of letting go of thoughts, more relaxation, everything quieting down, and then you use that as a segue into sleep. That's usually a very good way of ending the day. One final point before you do that. So if you start the day by setting a good intention, you can also end the day by kind of looking back on the day and see, okay, what went well? Maybe tomorrow I'll do more of that. What am I not so happy about or proud of? Okay, maybe tomorrow I'll start with a fresh intention and do less of that. So that's how we cultivate good habits over time. Start with a good intention, end with a little review, and then one day at a time. Okay, I'm going to stop the blah 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 now and send you on your way. So thank you again for your attention and focus and great questions and comments, and I really enjoy seeing you every week. So I look forward to seeing you again next week, perhaps. Thank you.